Mr. Little, we'll move over to the next resolution.
Okay, number 6, a resolution authorizing the advertising for bids for the 2018 road resurfacing program for the attached list of roadways throughout Monroeville. Any comments, questions on that from council? Mr. Hugus has given...
I have a comment.
Sure.
I'm in the 6th Ward representative. I understand that I'm actually one of the smallest and the lowest amount of municipal roads. A lot of my roads are county and one state. But I have 2 roads getting resurfaced. And there's some that, whatever, but I'm going to stick to my ward. And it's called a seal coat with flush coat. And I contacted Mr. Hugus today, and he explained to me what I used to call it was tar and chip, which I'm on board with. I think that's a lot better than what they used to do, like a seal coat, like coating your driveway.
A slurry seal.
Yeah, a slurry seal. And that would wear off. You could see the yellow lines coming through after a few months. But I'm on board with this. It's just, my ward has the smallest amount of mileage, but it's one of the older wards. And I have just as many taxpayers, that live in my ward compared to other wards, probably more. I hope that, we can do something with this infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Hugus, what's the total amount budgeted for our resurfacing program?
$800,000.
Okay, and out of the $800,000 with my 2 roads, we're going to spend $24,268 in my ward, in the 6th Ward. And I'm okay with that. I understand that. I understand that the money's tight. But we all up here need to get together and do something with this infrastructure. I mean, I can remember years ago when we'd spend millions of dollars a year on our infrastructure, our roads, our storm sewer maintenance. We have the greatest. Our 911 center, our 5 fire halls, our senior center, library, parks, that's all great. But if you can't get to them because the roads are at such a point, we did happen to find $1.1 million for our radio and 911 upgrade this year. I suggest that this council works together to find $1.1 million to put into our roads and our infrastructure.
Well, that's a good
for next
suggestion.
year.
Yeah, because we have, in your report, the report in front of you, I believe, Mr. Hugus, the amount was we should be doing, is it 1.8 million to stay
Minimum.
steady?
Yeah.
Minimum.
We should be paving.
Is that the figure you gave us?
Yeah, we should be paving a little over 7
Paul,
miles per
you
year.
can recall years where this municipality budgeted multi-millions
Right.
of dollars.
We used to be like 1.5 to 1.7
Annually.
per year.
But that
Per
money
year.
was borrowed a lot of the time, and we made the decision to
I
not
fully
borrow money.
understand that.
But
But we
now
can
we're reaching a
find-
point.
But we can find money for other projects.
I agree with you.
I think our infrastructure is one of our main things
Okay,
that
but
we all should be
so is the
looking at.
public safety. Now that
I understand public
that's-
safety.
that's
I
been
really
taken
do.
care of, I think
Believe it
we
or not.
all need to now, and I am in total agreement with you. We now need to take the step to add more money to the paving road program.
And we support a lot of things.
Correct. And I think
which are
people
great for
need to
Monroeville.
understand.
But if our infrastructure falls apart,
Correct.
that can all go to
And there's a whole,
wherever.
we should have an entire capital improvement line item in next year's budget, and the people of Monroeville need to tell us, do you understand that we will have to raise your taxes to
Well-
get that done, or where do you want us to get the money?
Well, we can understand and let the
before we get
residents
that-
know that
before we
there's
get that
going to be
far,
an
let me-
increase here shortly.
It has to
as
be.
far as the storm sewer water management. But I'm talking our roads,
That's a capital improvement, different than an MS4.
most definitely. So possibly, I know we don't like to take loans, but, I mean, to maintain our roads,
Well, let me ask a couple of questions, if I can,
Yeah,
Your Honor.
one moment, everybody. Yeah, Mr. Poach.
Yeah, first to Paul, for just a second, so I can understand some of the information that was in front of us. A terrific report, we got a hold of it. It's 20-some-odd pages long, a lot of good information that was in there. So in this process, number one, we've rated and got a process where we've evaluated the roads and the structures and the status of them, good, bad, fair, et cetera, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what was interesting was that I found that we had about almost 14 years' worth of data in place, and plus we have this year's to add into it as well, too. So if we took a look at those numbers across the board, it appears that the median number of the status of these roads, it doesn't really matter if we looked at it 15 years ago, 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. They're within a very, very small difference in terms of the status of those roads. In other words, this problem's been going on for quite some time. So the numbers are pretty solid in terms of that. Their status is, we're in the 5.9 to 5.49 range, that median range or so that we had in there. So those are pretty solid numbers from about 15 years of data. Does that seem about right?
It is.
Okay, that's in good shape, too. So in other words, in the latter part of the report, where we had the graph, we're really kind of losing. We're falling behind.
Oh, we're way behind.
Way behind. We're over 50-some-odd% of the roads are in a status that we don't want them to be, in the 5.99 range, which I believe is just
Right.
fair.
I mean, and again, I'm using round figures here. We should be doing about 7 miles of roads per year. Now, again, the report also reflects, we have 109, 10 miles of roads. We also have to look at 34 parking lots that we own and maintain, which they are tremendously deteriorating too.
Sure.
You go to the Public Works facility, in and around that whole facility, it's terrible. The park is coming up on its, we're close to being 15 years old at the community park.
Right.
That's another big ticket item, the Public Safety Training Center.
I probably want to
15 years.
emphasize our roads prior to parking lots.
Well, but when we look at it,
correct?
Steve, but,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but we
I did have
also
the floor
include,
there for a minute.
we also include parking lots, Steve, because,
Actually, I
they're
do.
part of our infrastructure, so we look at them, even this parking lot here, this building was opened in 2000. It's 18 years old.
Sure.
You drive through the parking lot, you can see deterioration of this
Let
parking lot.
me keep moving with this piece of it.
Right.
So number
I'd
one,
like
you're
to-
going to need action from us. I think we all collectively, it sounds like, know we need to pay attention to the infrastructure. Not a question. Okay? Not a question about that
Well, let me
at
go
all.
back real quick, though.
Sure, please.
We go, using round figures again. We should be doing about 7 miles of roads per year.
And that's just keeping up.
And that's to keep pace.
Okay, that was
We
the
haven't
part
done
out of
that.
your report.
And we are about 50 miles behind where we should be.
That was in
And that's
that last
pretty dramatic.
graph of the report that
Right.
was in there, too. So that has it pretty far behind. So we agree to that. So number one, we need to address the emergent need that we have. In this past couple of weeks, as we've got to talk to people, it seems to be one of the most important things people have asked me about, and we've all received calls on. So number one, critical infrastructure is high on the list, no question. We have our homework in front of us, too. And then these documents also indicate we need to get the next bit of information, the number squared away for this next year,
Right.
what's in front of us, too. So those are the two key issues right now, short-term, and then we need better long-term planning. And that sounds like we all seem to agree on infrastructure?
Well,
Or any
Capital-
question
on
about that?
capital
You know,
improvements.
I'd like to
On capital
continue.
improvements.
Capital
I'd like
improvement,
to
not
continue-
infrastructure, capital
Well,
improvement.
critical infrastructure was the term.
I'd like to continue on my first thing, if possible.
Yeah.
Mr. Duncan, go ahead, please.
Okay, prior to any of these roads being done, Public Works crew has to come in. Now, this seal coat with flush coat, that's what all the words are getting, okay? I'm going to use one street that I'm going to get done out of two, is Ohio Street. It's deteriorated. So Public Works has to come in there, dig up all these soft spots and potholes and patch them prior to this seal coat with flush coat. So I don't know that that's part of the budget. I don't believe it is. It's just
Well,
a,
if we look at it with the first option, it was not, Steve, and that was the numbers. I usually put money in. If you look at the next alternative, there is money
Right, I've seen
in
the
there because-
alternatives, yes.
Yeah, because with the paving section
And-
of it, there's more of an infrastructure repair with storm sewers.
and just so
there is.
this council and public knows, also they have to, prior to us doing anything to a road, seal coating or whatever, we'd like to get the storm sewers repaired prior to, camera it and repair it if
Right, and then
needed.
that's
So that's
part of-
another added
Right, part of the
cost.
progression is once council approves the list, we put this list out to Public Works right away so they can get started on it. But it also goes to all the utility companies, especially the municipal authority.
And that's catch basin repair also.
Right, and so it goes to the municipal authority and all the other utilities to repair any utilities that they may want to before we do our work.
So I guess my point is, there's a lot more involved than just the streets that are being done. There's so much, so many things that have to happen prior to that application. just so everybody's aware of that.
Right, yeah, and one
And
thing.
again, me having two in the 6th Ward.
Are you going on, number 1 or number 2? There's two, we were given 2 different
Well,
approaches.
naturally, I'm going off of number 1, not the optional one.
Okay, because I mean, in the optional one, I have 2. I'm in the same boat you are in the first option.
Right.
And I'm not real
because
happy
it's
about it
much
either.
more
Yeah.
expensive. But that's option 2.
Yes,
So I'm anticipating that we're going to accept option 1.
which I don't know that. That's what
For
I'm saying.
whatever reason. No, it's just my
Yes,
thought.
okay.
Okay, I'm just,
Well, I mean, what I would suggest, and one thing I would just add, Mr. Harvey, I'll give you the floor in a second, but one thing to add to all this is what we can probably all agree on at this point is this winter was terrible
For
Oh,
every
it's
for our
horrendous.
roads.
Every winter.
Which is kind of an, almost an unforeseen, variable that, I mean, I think the engineering department does a great job of categorizing the roads and grading them, but this has been a very rough winter with our freeze-thaw cycles. And to what I'm hearing here, I mean, from Mr. Duncan and the council in general, I mean, maybe we need to not necessarily address in the future years, but maybe look at this second option that's given to us, even it is more expensive. Is there a way we can come up with more funding? Mr. Harvey?
Well,
And more than that.
I guess I want to say I 100% agree with Mr. Duncan and the rest of the council. I also, it's not hard to figure out, as Mr. Hugus has pointed out in his reports, that every time we're thrifty and we try to save our money and not raise taxes and not do this and not spend money on that, the infrastructure deteriorates a little more. And then it ends up costing us more in the long run, and the example would be Elliott Road. Last year, Elliott Road was bid out at around, I think, $84,000 to fix it properly, and this year it's up to $102,000. And that's in 1 year.
That's correct.
So I think personally that we saved the residents money for a purpose. And I would like to have council consider taking $1 million out of our savings and adding it to this road improvement budget and getting more of the roads done.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I think we all agree.
but where do we stand there? How do we fulfill all of our other deficits? I mean,
Right.
Well,
it's easy to say take $1 million out.
No, he doesn't mean out of it, he means add to it.
I mean, add
Add another $1 million into.
add
road
another $1 million
improvements
to the road paving
The
program.
fund balance.
from the fund balance.
Okay.
Mr. Cinco, do you have a
Well,
comment?
and I'm in agreement with everybody's comment. My comment would be, so we all on the same page, and it is public knowledge. Josie, if you would give us on Tuesday, for this council to consider, what is our actual fund balance? What do we actually have to operate? I want exact dollar amounts. Mr. Harvey's suggesting $1 million. I even think if we even go a little bit more, that's okay too. Because, Ron, you hit the nail on the head. We have kicked the can down the road so far, now we're in trouble. And if we continue just to nickel and dime this, we're going to be in more trouble.
It's going to keep
This
getting
is-
worse. It's not going to get
If
better.
we.
Exactly, and
Okay,
I
so
think-
if we add $1 million, then Mr. Yugas needs to give us an update as to what would be added for our $1 million.
Well, just let him go with what he has.
Will
but then
Ward
let's
6
discuss
get
it.
more than 2 roads?
Well, if Ward's
Tentative?
not getting more than my 2, I'm
It's a
not in.
question.
Well, it's done pretty, I mean, I think the engineering
Pardon
department
me?
tries to do it as objectively as possible.
Yeah, one more. I'll get 3.
So, Mr. Hugus, if I could, just to,
Mr. Mayor, may I finish?
yeah, you had the floor. Finish your point, please.
The bottom line is, please, for council, are you okay with Josie presenting the numbers, what we actually have? There's no national secrets here.
No, and I would also like to have a rough idea of what we would
And
do
then
with
and
it.
I agree, and then let Paul run with what he has at 800,000, and let him come up with whatever dollar amount we decide that we need to take from our current money that
But
we
now you're
have,
taking us
and let him
into
run.
another month.
What do we currently have budgeted now?
8.
800,000.
So we're talking another $1 million, so
Right.
$1,800,000.
1.8.
All of a sudden, bang, there it is. We budgeted 800,000, and all of a sudden, we got $1 million.
Well, that's out of the general budget.
I know, but we need our general budget, don't we?
Right. Well, that's where,
How about our-
last year
how
we
about
had
our ratings
$250,000.
But we're not
That's why
we're not
we're
not
borrowing that
borrowing.
money.
I don't want to take any bond
Not
money.
borrowing money.
No
I
way
think
do I want to
considering-
borrow.
I mean, I think it's a good suggestion. I think considering the bad winter,
I think it's something to look into.
I think it's, yeah, exactly. I think it's
Whether it
also,
be $1 million or 500,000 or whatever.
well, considering also the $1.8 million figure is what the engineering department suggested as far as us staying on top of the paving to some degree. But, so to Mr. Arasinko's question, is council okay with at least having Josie give us the information?
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
I think
We'll start
it's
there.
needed.
Wait,
The
Mr. Little?
information is already here,
Josie,
okay?
one less thing for you to do.
All right. I asked Josie
I gave
because,
him a report.
yeah, the information's already here because I knew council would want to discuss this at the meeting. Right now, we're anticipated at the end of the month having about $8.4 million, including reserve in the fund balance. Now, that's a very good fund balance. The question is not what we have in the fund balance. The fund balance, as I've been saying for 2 years, is growing nicely, and there's 3 reasons why it's growing, as I've said over the last 2 years. The first reason is because the business privilege tax, the tax office has done a good job of going after delinquent business privilege tax, and we've had good tax collection. The second reason is that we had not hired personnel that had been budgeted due to different reasons, okay, police, in the engineering and planning department, so we saved money there. And the third reason is because the department heads do a good job of keeping their budgets in line. So ever since, let's say, the last 3 years, we have increased the fund balance. Now, and that's a good thing, but it isn't on the revenue side. It's what's coming up and, you know, coming down the pike. This year, for instance, to give you one example, we're not buying any police cars this year. I told Chief Cole that 9 months ago. I told all the department heads last summer, you're not buying any capital equipment for 2000, and I said it for 17. So we haven't bought any, we had police cars already budgeted, and they come in December, I believe it is. So you have to think about what is coming down the pike, and some of the council members I talked to about this. I have to look down the road, as we all do, what's coming down the pike in a year. We're going to have to buy 3 more police cars. We're way behind on computers, different things of that nature. And as I've always said for the last 2 years, it's always the unknown out there that is going to happen. $1 million is a little much, all right, in my opinion. I mean, if you want to do 500,000, but that's my recommendation. If you want to do $1 million, we can do $1 million. But 18 months down the road, there may be something that comes up that we may need the money for. And I'm not saying $1 million, it's money well spent.
If you don't fix those roads, the police cars won't be able to ride on them.
Well, good.
And I agree
And if
with
we
what
don't
you're
get it-
saying, Tim, but you know what? This council has to answer to the residents, and they want the roads fixed.
Okay.
Let's fix the damn
They
roads.
Yes.
really do. They really, really do.
Enough said on
Well,
it.
yeah, the people are paying for tires
It's their
and
money,
rims
not
and-
ours.
Okay.
Well, so then let's, so we have that number. I guess the next step would be, as far as thinking ahead for Tuesday, is what we're going to be voting on.
Well, we have to have Paul make up a
Revamp
new
Paul will have to
plan.
come up
I
with
think
a-
we have to also, to my point before, and I probably didn't make it clear in that time, is readjust the plan that he put in place, consider the additional fundings. Folks, it's across the board. I know we talked about wards and the way it's divided off and the reports presented to us, but we all have a problem to do that too. So possibly readjust the plan. This is the right format. This is the right structure. We have the right rating of it.
And a
move forward.
revision of the Pfizer.
Can I ask?
That's correct.
Can I ask a
Okay,
question?
yeah.
May I ask a question?
Mr.
No,
Johns.
I don't. It's just my way of thinking. It certainly doesn't mean I'm right. In the 4th Ward, let's just use my plan, for example. Turnpike Gardens.
Which is in good shape, coincidentally, by
Turnpike
the numbers,
Gardens.
yeah.
Okay, that's a plan. To me, what roads take more precedent? A road that I call a main highway. I keep hating to say Elliott Road, but that's a main highway that everybody uses to get to their homes. So when
JJ,
you're looking at it,
We use that as a collector road, so that's a good term.
well, it makes sense, collector road. So when you're looking at these things, no matter what ward it's in you're in Monroeville, do you basically try to look at a collector road before you look at
Right.
Lolly Drive or wherever.
Yeah, just so the public,
My opinion only.
yeah, and just so the public knows, we've talked about this before, but the Paiser score, every road is given a score. So there's different metrics that they go out, the engineering department goes out and grades it. Score of 1 to 10. 1 is terrible, 10 is a brand-new road. Then there's also, which kind of to your point, there's a priority number that's assigned because you may have a terrible road that's maybe a dead-end cul-de-sac that has one house on it
Right.
versus a terrible road that is like Elliott Road, that is a collector road. And that's where it also gets prioritized. So there it is a objective list.
Right.
Now, I'm assuming council, as far as to direct Mr. Hugis's department, do we just go down the list of the next roads that are a priority and with that low Paiser score? Because everything, Mr. Hugis, and if you could help me out here, every road is given both a Paiser score and a priority number.
That's correct.
And you basically figure out how much money we have, and then you address X amount, whatever.
Yeah, we take the dollar amount, we try to fit what is the best plan to that dollar amount.
Well, I think we let him continue with that
That's
plan,
right.
just add the money.
And
Yeah,
if
let's
if I
just
may,
let's do-
Add the $1 million and
Absolutely.
give us some new lists.
Yeah.
if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan.
mill and pave should be a priority if we're adding all this money.
Well, that was my question.
Now, understand this,
Correct.
council.
I agree.
Milling and paving, you come in, you mill the road, you repave the road. We're not tar and chipping, we're not seal coat.
We're not
plush
painting the
coat.
road again all over.
Mr.
We need
Hughes,
to
that
do
would
it
be
right.
adjusted also.
Yeah, well, let.
Understand, if we're going to use this money, use it
Yeah, it makes sense with it. Do it right.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
properly.
And I was going to ask that, Steve, because, you know.
I mean, don't you agree?
What you have here is a combination of, and you're never going to get rid of seal coating because there are certain streets
Right,
that
and
are
that
more,
makes sense.
That's understandable.
more useful with a seal coating than there is a mill and pave.
Sure, makes
So you're
sense.
never going to get rid of it.
Right.
But so you have to blend it in with your milling and paving. And back to your question, yeah, I mean, we have some major collector roads, Old William Penn Highway, Elliott Road, Illini,
Spillman Lane.
Rosecrest, Logan's Ferry Road. I mean, they're big roads that chew up a lot of money.
Garden City Drive.
Oh, yeah, College Park Drive.
Yeah, because to mill and pave, what we're talking about,
Oh.
it's $250,000 per mile.
Correct.
$250,000
Sure.
per mile to mill it and pave it.
Right.
So that
I
does,
understand, but where the roads are so far deteriorated, we should probably. look
Absolutely,
mill
yeah,
and
because you're
pave
throng-
Rather than
We all agree with that.
putting a
yeah,
band.
we all agree. You're
We
throwing
agree.
money at.
Right.
And you know what, council, just food for thought for everybody, that's just not for this year. We're gonna have to do this for the next 2 to 3, 4
That's-
years down the
Well, we need
road.
to do some work on that.
That's
We
a
need to
budget
come up with a new,
discussion.
we need to come up
Well,
with a
I'm just
plan
saying,
for
I'm just
all
making a
capital improvements.
blanket statement.
Police
That's where we're
cars,
at.
the buildings, everything. That we've been spending no money. It's like buying a home and then just letting it deteriorate. And that's what we've been doing by saving money. What is the purpose of saving money if we're not going to fix up all these problems?
It's their
agree.
money.
And we may
need to
have
fix
to
it.
put a tax increase into and put a line item with a capital improvement, and I think maybe a 5-year or 3-year capital improvement plan, Mr. Little, may be called for, so we can show people what we're thinking of getting done, but then it has to take care of roads and everything. But I think if we're going to take this $1 million, just my thought, this year, out of our savings, let's give as much as we can back to the people, and then starting next year, when we have a capital improvement in place and the money for it, then we start getting back into the milling and paving. That's my thought. Try and give as much
Question,
as we can back
Tim.
now.
Well, it's almost a waste of $1 million if you're not going to,
Right.
But sealing and all of that still helps some of the existing roads.
Mr. Wilson.
it's putting a Band-Aid.
Well, but you're only getting 4 miles,
Aren't we
Steve.
required by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to maintain a certain amount of our budget in our fund balance?
Well, not necessarily. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends 20%. That's gone up. I mean, there's no law basically saying that you have to have that amount of money. It's a Government Finance Officers Association.
I thought there was something that the state required us to have as far as a fund balance.
Isn't it a recommendation?
It's more or less a recommendation, yeah.
Pardon me?
It's more or less a
Recommendation.
recommendation.
What's our percentage at now?
Well, if, at the end of the year, I mean, we were probably we were over 20%.
Okay.
25%.
So we were at that mark
Yeah.
at the end of the year. Okay. Well, I mean, council, so we can certainly discuss this more on Tuesday, but it sounds like at least let's get the information in front of us, then we can decide how much of the money we want to transfer, and then the next thing, how to use it.
How to spend it.
And how to spend it.
And does Mr. Hugus have enough direction from us to proceed forward with the
Well, I
plan?
really
Well,
What
that's
else?
direction, but I haven't compiled it yet here. So what are we going?
I think we never need, I would like to go two
Yeah,
different
wait till
directions to
Tuesday.
see what,
Tune in later.
I mean, what kind of a budget number are we talking?
we're saying get another $1 million.
$1.8 million.
1.8.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right around that
And-
figure.
and we don't want to do seal coating in the neighborhoods. We want to do the
I
paving.
don't know about that.
Well,
that's-
we want to use your,
I brought that up for
It's
discussion.
your,
Yeah.
It
it's
makes
your
more
preference.
sense to fix a road permanently
But
than it does to put a Band-Aid on it, is my opinion.
I agree with you, Steve.
And
You're
that's right,
just-
if you have a collector road,
Right.
whatever, wherever it is, who's ever worn, I could care less where it is, and it's deteriorated, seal coating is not gonna help it.
No,
It's not.
That's
a waste of money.
But you're going to get 6 times the mileage out of a seal coat than you will a paving. Now, obviously, it's not going to last as long. It's only going to last 5 to 7 years. And
But in the
and
meantime,
that's
we
what
started
did.
capital improvement, we started to get more money in,
But
and
I'm
we
saying,
can
like,
start
some
to
of these
mill and
collector
pave
roads, I don't know how you
regular,
possibly do
No,
on
you
a
can't.
regular
That's what I'm
basis.
saying. You're never going to get away from it
Right.
totally.
I understand.
Now,
I'm
we
just-
did we did the entire Turnpike Gardens plan 2 years ago. with
Right.
seal
Yeah.
coat.
And it's
and
still
don't
not good.
forget, your
It is tough.
5-man public works crew's got to come in and prep all these prior to this.
Right.
Correct.
I was just going to say that
5-man.
logistically, that's going to put a huge demand on
Public works.
Public Works. It is.
So your grass cutting, your maintenance,
all right.
your
We'll get summer help.
buildings that we're talking about, our parking lots and such, are all going to have to be,
Okay.
What else do
unless
you
we
need?
hire 10 more people.
Paul, do you
What
have
else
enough
do you need
idea of
from
what,
us?
of what to do? Give us some ideas.
Paul, what if, let me ask the question this way perhaps. What if we would have approved in this year's budget, back in December, $1.8 million? What's the program you would have put in front of us? Maybe think of it that
Still
way.
would have been a combination, but there probably would have been more of a traditional paving associated
Well,
with it.
do that then.
Then do that, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, give us something
Pretend like
that.
this is what it's been, the money's been there the
Yeah.
whole time, and maybe
Yeah.
That'd be fine.
But
present.
again, and I go back, and I totally agree with Steve that it's going to put a bigger demand on Public Works to get the roads prepped. So your long range of getting your paving done, we usually pick between when school's out to when school comes back in session. That may not happen.
But if the money's
may-
allocated,
it
even
may
if
go
some roads
beyond
get
that.
pushed
That's okay.
either later or
okay.
even to
That's
next
okay.
year,
Yeah,
they're still
the
paid for
The
it.
situation's critical enough that
Correct.
we need to get that.
Exactly.
And I also think we need to ask our public to give us direction on what you want us to do for next year. Do you want a capital improvement? Would you be willing to pay the extra 1 mil, we'll say, we'll just throw that out there, to keep these roads upgraded, to keep the system working, to keep our buildings upgraded? It's got to come from somewhere. We can't keep pitching pennies. Things are starting to fall apart. And we need input. And it's my town, and I pay the same as everybody else, and I don't want my town falling apart. So I'm just giving you my personal opinion. The services I get for the little bit that I pay, when you break your taxes down, if you look at what you're paying, not the bulk, what you're paying for just Monroeville and what you're getting for it, every day of the week, give it to me. I'm in. That's all I have to say.
And part of the, when I look at this, so, and Steve I'm going to pick on Steve's one street.
Go ahead,
is-
go for
Is
it.
Park Place. To get to Park Place, you got to go down Huntington, down Glenwood to get to Park Place. So by the time you're done getting Park Place done, you've beat up the other roads, taking all the millings out and taking all the asphalt in. So we tried to even do the whole little neighborhood together, get it done and get out of there, so you're done with it.
Park Place isn't on my list.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Well, in either case, though, Paul, one of the other things in your
Still on
report you
high.
brought out that I think's significant
On the
to
next
bring this to conclusion, you made a recommendation, you mentioned in your report how a number of communities have come to us, look at what we've done, the tactics you've applied to get this problem done.
Stevie.
And been looked at it, and looked at it's a good practice.
Right.
So in terms of best practices, what you're doing is terrific. Proceed forward. I think we all agree with that, based as if, like the mayor said.
Actually, I had a phone call today from an engineer from another community, one of our bid specs for seal coating because they want to do
So,
that.
so we're on the right track, we're doing the best practices.
Yeah.
Please proceed forward. I think we all agree with it, and we can talk
Something
about it
needs
more
done
for
in-
next week, too.
On Tuesday, perfect.
And I would,
Thank you.
And I would ask in the interim if council would please not bother Mr. Hugus between now and Tuesday about
He's
getting
going to be
extra
busy, yeah, we can't, yeah, he's going to be a little busy, yeah.
You're going to get 7 phone calls tomorrow morning.
Paul?
No.
Mr. Little,
No.
good.
No.
I agree with you.
He's busy.
Park Place was on the alternate.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
If we
I'm
could move
talking
over,
about-
Stevie, do you see what I'm saying?
we're good?
the alternate.
You got it?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to have lunch tomorrow?
No.
I should
Stop,
tell,
Jim.
I should tell all of you now that I will not be in the office tomorrow. and that was
Paul's taking a
pre-planned.
vacation day.
Let's continue.
All right, let's move forward. So,
Smokes.
folks, we're still on resolutions.